Okay, you can hear me, correct? And you can see me. Sit up straight. Oops. Tall. Shoulders back. Close your eyes. Draw your attention in. Turn your various technologies off. Close your eyes. Draw your attention in. The outgoing thoughts. Turn around. Let loose their objects and draw back in. Join your palms. A normal breath is a connected breath. Normalize your breath. Pelvically, abdominally, diaphragmatically. Thoracically. Interior of the throat, skull, spine. Pay homage to this practice and to that root teacher, Patanjali. Bow your head. Release your hands. Raise your head. Open your eyes. Stretch your legs. Probably it's time to take your socks off. Okay. And anything else that's going to flap around and get in your way, which unfortunately is my scarf. Adho Mukha Virasana, toes together, knees apart. Set yourself carefully and actively stretch your feet. Actively flatten this whole top of the foot from inside to out on the floor. That means you've got to center the arch, the ankle, shin, all the way to the knee, and this calf parallel to the floor. Make sure that's true. So that's the lower limb. See that the upper limb is likewise carefully placed. Sit. Get those hips relaxed. Settle the groins. Cheryl, how's your hip after difficulties? Is it okay? Are you doing fine at this moment? if you need the strap assist to help get some softness in the groin, do it. If that brings pain, don't do it, but do what you can to quiet and shavasana eyes that hip. So the arms can be as active as necessary to keep depth, either pushing or reaching. In any case, everybody is actively flattening the foot, centering the ankle shin, head of the shin, and lengthening back through the thigh, especially the groin side. Well, really both sides, really truly both sides. So whether you emphasize the inner or outer side of that thigh, settling toward the socket, depends on your sensation. Some of you will get more relief, more shavasana on the interior by tucking the outer thigh. More shavasana means the breath in that hip socket gets normalized. Like if you can truly pacify that hip socket, the parts that were not accessible to the breath become accessible. And it's just like what happens externally when you can relax, when you as a teacher, you as a student, you see people suddenly get an alignment, the breath opens up. It's like, they can. Right? So it's the same thing happens in a more subtle way inside the hip socket. So come to Adho Mukha Svanasana, start on the hands and knees. And prepare yourself in the terms we've been discussing. That is to say, activate those feet shins. Reflect from that back to the hip. Activate the palms, forearms. Reflect that back to the armpits, groins in both cases. So when you come up into the pose, we can't say there's actually any kind of shavasana in those hips. There's a lot of activity going on. But watch for the contact of the breath. Inner thigh, outer thigh, equally able to lengthen to the hip socket. The emphasis is on the elements of that which allow you to make contact and bring breath everywhere. Stretch the leg without losing that normal breath. Take the heel back, shin back, spread those toes. Activate the outer calf, compact it in. Release to the hip socket. Breathe. Same, really same, analogous in through the hands, forearms, shoulders, into the armpit, trapezius, root of the neck. Come forward then to Ardha Uttanasana. Ardha Uttanasana. Take whatever support under the hands you may need to elevate that spine enough that you get that same ability to tuck in to the hip socket. Now watch those feet, they're flat on the floor. So you're spreading an extension or lopsidedness in balancing this inner and outer foot, inner and outer heel, grounding of the foot, stretch, engagement of the outer calf. It's all the same. And as you go, you see now in straightening the leg, the outer knee gets kind of important. Being able to maintain the outer knee stretch is, I hope, going to help you stay quiet in the groin. Are you okay, Cheryl? Stretch your arms forward with or without bricks, as if you're doing Uttanasana from the hips to the floor, and Adho Mukha Svanasana from the hips to the hands. Use bricks, don't use bricks, but stretch long. Pay attention to those feet. Keep your hips back. Gay. Keep your hips back, Karen. Legs vertical. Hips back, Karen. Stay on the heel. Stay. Yes, there you go. So raise those bricks and you'll get some stretch in the armpits. All right, now just relax all the way down. From this, you just let everything extend toward the floor, like liquid. Don't pull toward the shins. If you will pull in the direction the spine is already moving. And go with the breathability in that hip socket, inner or outer side, emphatically working to make that happen. Stay on the foot. Now, time to come up. Stick to the rules. Okay. Get your chair with a sticky mat on it. That chair, this is so you need a chair with a sticky mat on it, and you need room on your sticky mat to stretch. We're going toward, Cheryl, Parshva Konasana, using the chair to do some sorting of the hips. So I'm going to say because I know this is one of your unfavorite poses. So also, Cheryl, get blankets. So that you can raise up the pose in terms of your back hip. You can just be higher and still stick to the actions of the pose. We're just gonna make you taller. And this means you'll have to put something underneath your foot as well, raising up the seat. Now, Karen, yes, I see you trying a similar thing. Sit further back on that chair. So, sorry, what I mean is, now, without all the extra stuff, you should sit with your knee close to the edge of the chair and your buttocks close to the other edge. And when you stretch that leg back, Gay, you know from our discussion just recently where these heels line up. So you just make that happen. The heels line up with each other. Cheryl, I know we have made concessions to let this back foot come forward. I'm mentioning these things because the whole idea is I want you to start with Shavasana that can, just the normalization of breath. So let me not call it Shavasana. Let's just call it normalization of the breath. So you take the shape and the support that allows you to normalize the breath with strength, with engagement. Does that make sense? You got to be able to stretch that back heel into the floor and push it down and keep that hip normalized. So you may be leaning, you may be just pushing on the chair seat, because I want you to attempt to come up first, not down. Up first, not down. Coming up first might involve, let me complete this first part. You know, the seated leg, the bent leg also has to sit. That buttock has to sit. Yes, Gay. Ooh, I see Marcia almost. Another blackout though. Keep sitting with the front buttock. And as you do, it may be quite helpful to move your back leg back. Sit the front buttock, hip socket down as much as you can. Your right buttock down, right hip socket. So just turning myself around so you see the back. It's right here. Right here, it's got to go down, has to go down. The sacrum has to go down. The ilium has to go down. It's just got to roll, smush down, smush it down. And you sit as high as you need to right now. Cheryl, you've got your heel braced at a wall. And that gives you happy, normal breath in the hip. Okay. And if you were to remove the wall and move your heel further back, I think that might go too far. Is that true? Okay, you're close to level here. So do everything you can toward full level with normal breath in the hip socket. And that means both hip sockets, you know, not just the one you're more concerned with. Looking good, Marcia. That is to say, you're visible. As is a first today. Good. Get that outer heel down, Marcia. Flatten that foot, broaden that foot. Analyze your contact. The one and only thing I worry about, Cheryl, at the wall is you lose sight of the floor. So be very clear that you're on the floor. Yeah. Change sides. We'll get to, you should face forward, Marcia, unless that is the only way. Forward means this way, face Vera too, unless there is trouble with the hip, and this is the only way the breath normalizes, because that's the rule. Now, Cheryl, same hip, new predicament. So work very, very hard. Don't fix or determine this back leg. I mean, it may come forward. Do your front leg first in terms of get some action out of that buttock. Okay. So maybe your back leg gets close to position, but you've got to be able to start mushing, relaxing, sitting, settling, seating that hip socket down. And for some of you, it may very much help to reach back through that straight leg thigh. Always there's that sense of normalized breath. Now, you don't have to work too hard through your bent leg foot, but be super clear that it is flat on the floor and not rolling one way or the other. Be very clear in your foot contact and sit that buttock down. Come out. Whatever your asymmetries are, I'm wagging my finger at you saying you need to accommodate them. You come up higher so you have less work on the hips. You lean, you don't sit upright. You work in this direction. This back leg can come forward when the hips are really tight. It looks like we're gonna do Parshva Konasana, so that's why I'm making sure this is clear. When the hip is very tight, this back foot can come forward instead of lining itself up heel to heel. If this kind of sitting with this thigh really open isn't happening with breathability, then you don't do it. You accommodate. Okay. So taking Parshva Konasana, you have to keep that front leg buttock seated, the back heel grounded, and you start moving down the chair leg. You could hold the back of the chair seat to help lift and open that trunk. And then the arm should come up to vertical before it goes overhead. In other words, don't leave it dangling behind you, but bring it overhead.
So Devon, I have a question. My knee really hurts. Is the knee supposed to be pointing toward the ground?
Is this the back leg knee?
Back leg knee.
Okay, back leg knee should not be pointing toward the ground. The back leg knee, especially if you roll the outer foot down, this is the center of my kneecap. If you turn your foot, you see my foot, the knee rolls it down. If I broaden that foot, lift the arch, can you see my finger? This is the whole bone is rolling. This is the correct direction. Outer knee back, outer heel down. Is that better, Marcia?
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Take that top thigh back and push from that back thigh to the heel. And your front leg, the buttock, sits. And then to take Parshva Konasana, keep that back heel down. Keep sitting on the front thigh. Good, Cheryl. Cheryl's got a belt pulling that top thigh. Oh, and she's gone. No, not sitting. She's active. How is it? Almost smiley. I can't quite see, but I bet your toes are bent up the wall. The heater's in the way. Good, Gay. Good, Marcia. Is your knee out of pain? Good. Take the arm over when it's time. Keep lifting that abdomen away from that top thigh. Lengthen the left ribs, Cheryl. I think it's a long pose for you, but the ribs were short. Come out, please. A chair makes it possible to stay quiet. But now watch, Marcia, how you come out from that. You're just to point out, the way you came out was to drop to the inner knee, which is the potentially harmful, you already experienced action. So be really careful. Raise the heel if you're going to bend that knee down. So there's no twisting at the knee, no dropping to the inner knee. So when you're coming out, you just turn the whole and come out. Do we have side two? Most of us do. Make sure the heel is down. It is, if your brick is not quite as, if you're not Cheryl, if your brick is not quite long enough for your foot, make sure the heel and the base joints, the toes, not necessarily the tips of the toes. Work on those feet. Pacify the hips. That looks good, Marcia. That's working this side. Now, the right leg was the one where the knee was irritated. Pay close attention to your foot on the floor there. And by feel, take Parshva Konasana, hand sliding down that chair leg, stretch your elbow, okay. Open that chest, this side looks straighter. Keep the outer thigh stretching to the heel, outer heel, grounded, toes of the foot broad, aware, interactive with that floor. Come up. Okay. Hips, hips, hips. Are you cold or warm? Cold.
Devon.
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry that I keep looking at my phone. I have a friend in bad need right now, so I will keep looking.
Okay.
Sorry.
I've had students who are on call. I understand. I used to have a psychiatrist and a psychiatric nurse, and they would come to class always on call. And we just called, it was in the days of pagers, and they just called it the rattlesnake and put it on the floor, and it would buzz, and they have to go. Here's what you do. Yes, Cheryl, with your new hips, whatever has happened to these hips, you're going to make use of them. There's a couple of things. If you do handstand or something like it, you will practice. First, with the right leg swinging. Don't have to go to handstand. You have to do the swinging. Now this is my left leg swinging. Don't have to go up. You just have to activate. Now, if you don't do handstand for one, or even the attempt at it without a helper or whatever nearby, if you don't do that, then you do something else. That is, you raise that leg up and down, raise it up and down, raise it up and down, super straight, raise it up and down. You just do that. Do it till you start warm up. Do it straight like Marsha. Spread your toes. Compact your calves. Straight legs. Push through the metatarsals to stretch that leg. Go a little bit faster, but keep that straight to straighter. The idea is work on the movement. Move. So those who can do handstand, do 10. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Not with that variation, Cheryl, but sure, the practice is good. But then, after you do that, do either 10 two-legged jumpings or 10 one-legged swings. If you're using your bolster, lovely. Roll up. 10 times. doesn't matter if you actually arrive at handstand. You need to make the heart work, circulation work. You need to bring up the Agni. You must build a fire, kindle a fire. Now use your breath to assist. That exhalation is going to, just like it does out at the blacksmith shop, that exhalation is going to help create some friction in the air and fan the fire. I'm hearing sound effects. There's some percussion going on. Don't get the neighbors upset. Or mute yourself. Okay. Think that's enough. A little bit of fire. Hopefully in the right place. I do not want fire in the knee joint. I don't want fire in the hip joint. Now, so let's see. So when I use devices like this, I always make a point of saying that there should be contact between your head and something, a ground. So once if you have a device, ropes or this kind of thing, or chairs, the 2-chair method, you still put a bolster or blankets, right? If you have those 2 chairs facing each other, you know the drill.
What are we going for?
And we're going for Shirshasana. And I'm saying because it comes up a lot. There's a lot of people with devices these days that help. So rope walls or such. Always make sure that the reason we use these is because you're not supposed to bear weight for whatever reason. So it's not like that should be compressive at all. The contact is more for the brain, not the spine and muscles. So don't compact the muscles. Extend the neck into that contact. And keep the contact point in your pose where your actual spine is, not where your throat is or your collarbones, not where your front chest is, but where the spine is. Make sure your left and right side of the skull, left and right ear, left and right side of the neck are equally extended. In the way you worked in Virasana with those forearm 4 legs and feet on the floor. You've got this forearm on the floor and your palm isn't flat, it's on its edge, but you still center that edge. And there is some width at the elbow, so make sure it is balanced. There is some width at the wrist, make sure it is in it. You know, after Abhijata was teaching that the hands do really embrace that skull, there's a slight change in my feel of how the wrist goes on the floor. But I think the idea is the same, that you've got to evenly extend, however you do it, right? Keep the elbow balanced. Keep those shoulders equally broad. Keep the 2 sides of the skull so those fingers can't tilt the skull, clutch the skull. Open palm, like an open sole of the foot. Now, what's the breathing doing? Is the breath constricted? Deconstrict the breath. Use your exhalation to maintain the Agni, the fire. Keep using your breath to keep the heat going. Stretch those legs. So the main, the central furnace is in the middle of you, navel region. Above it is a more physiological heater. That's the Samadavayu. It's where your stomach acids are. It's where your body finishes cooking and breaking down the food. So this is like the stove, but the navel region is the place that stores heat. This is just digestion heat. This is overall heat, a different sort of heat. When people do Qigong and Tai Chi, they store energy in this navel region. So every time you exhale, you're bringing a little more energy into the furnace. Stretch your legs and then bend the knees if you can, Cheryl, Karen. You're not going to be able to do this. You could do Virasana, but the rest of you do Baddha Konasana. And since those who are up are doing Virasana, straighten one leg and bend it again. Straighten the other leg, bend it again. Coordinate this with the breath. So then next time around, straighten the leg and bring it forward like Ekapada Shirshasana. Halfway down. Then you go back up, watch your breath, and go back to Virasana. And then straighten the other leg and come forward Ekpada. Use your feet. Go back up, Virasana. The Virasana foot is totally working. Coordinate with the breath, slow or fast, makes no difference. You can take 2 breaths to do each action. Doesn't have to, you can be fast or slow. Totally up to you. Now, if you're going to do it again, do it with 2 straight legs, like Hanumanasana. 1 leg forward, 1 leg back. 2 straight legs. Back leg. Oh, the front legs went so much forward. Back leg needs to go much further back. Change sides. It's like Pardrita Ekpada. You have to do it back leg emphasis. Go as far as you can the back leg, then keep going with the front leg. Go for Hanumanasana. 1 step back leg is maximum. Mm-hmm. Okay, time. Come out. Rest your head. Now, you need, well, you might need a blanket on the floor, and you might need a chair just behind your blanket. So you can kneel comfortably. You know, this base blanket is not necessary. It's just a comfort thing because it's winter and it's cold. But it may also, you may also need it to put a ground underneath your ankle. If it doesn't have one naturally, most ankles don't have one naturally. So you can sit and that chair comes up close to your back. So we'll just go simply at first. Standing up, flatten those toes on the floor, put your little toe down. Broaden the back of the buttocks. Okay. So I'm sitting just like this, buttocks, chair right next to my back. So when I come up the chair, it can come in closer. It can come in a lot closer. But this is, I'm looking for some space here, right? So it might start out uncomfortable, but I'm looking for this space, all right? So anyway, you come up, you've got to flatten those toes, pinky toes, and broaden the buttocks. You must remove strain from this front groin. You have to remove strain from the front groin. Okay. Then, having removed strain, this hip socket can come forward. I'm pointing to my hip socket. Look, your outer thigh is staying firm. It's helping you stretch out to your feet, but it moves forward and the groin stays quiet. Quiet. Now, if you can, catch that chair edge with the whole palm and fingers so you can push on it or pull on it, because I'm doing both. I'm pulling it apart and I'm pushing it away from me. And my hips come forward and my chest comes up. And I stretch in a big arc. Stretch your toes, push on that chair, let your hips come forward. Buttocks broad, shoulders back, chest forward. Now, come out. Have a seat, rest. If you want to put a bolster across your heels, that's fine. But the chair is going to come in. And it's coming in so that you can reach back differently. Now you've got a different thing to pull. I'm pulling my arms apart. When I exert that force and the hands don't move, the chest does. Okay, it's like leverage. Stretch your toes, broaden the buttocks, remove the tension in the groin. Hips forward, chest up, hands back. Pull the chair apart and push the chair away from your chest. Begin, as much as you feel like, walking down that chair leg, taking yourself into a bit deeper back bend. Now, to keep that space between your hands and your trunk, you may want to it's hard on a sticky mat. You can also scoot your knees forward, just come up, reset that pose. Spread your toes, let go that front hip, remove the tension, keep standing on the leg. Okay, so come up. How did that go? So, of course, you get to do much more complete version of the pose according to your capacity. So the chair is maybe still necessary for some of you. Like Karen, who's working very closely in the hip, you don't necessarily maximize the pose because that often blurs your picture, right?
I've got a question, Devon.
Go.
Because my weight shifts to one leg, so I put a light pad under that leg so that I put the weight back onto the leg that doesn't want to stretch. Is that make sense? Because my right groin opens up, my left doesn't. So by lifting the knee,
you should turn Ustrasana so that you face me, and then you go back facing your window.
I should face.
And I want to see you from the floor up. I don't see you from the floor up yet. So back up closer to your window. Move away from the camera. Okay, much better, but I still don't quite see your knees. So get as far back or shift that camera.
Oof, won't go any further. Okay.
All right, so if I can't see which leg is not working, then if you technically have a shorter femur, then you must shim up the shorter femur. Don't shim up the long one and make the short do more work. Shim the short one, don't over shim it. Right? shim all the way to the ankle. So you're level. And go to work there. Good. Now, Cheryl, I think I see a bit of space between your knees and the wall. And I encourage a bit more space, if possible, because I want that hip socket to be able to come forward, because you are activating that hamstring. Is the hamstring waking up? You got to deactivate the front thigh and activate the back thigh. Yeah, Cheryl, you see, you can cantilever yourself farther over if you get your knees farther away. Yeah, that was good. How is it in the hip? Did you have breathability? Okay, don't watch that computer. Don't turn your head. Try to get your whole palm on that bolster. Now you got to lengthen those outer hips more. Lengthen outer thighs, outer hips more. Marcia, hips forward. Push on those feet. Move your hamstrings up toward the hips, hip sockets forward. Okay, good. Are you all right? Did that make sense, Karen? So if that issue with seeing you in silhouette, I can see the shape of the hips. And let me say that shim that you gave yourself is a bit too thick. It's a bit too thick. Doesn't look like much, but it's a bit too thick. Or you experiment, but I'll tell you what it did was you lost extension here. So this side of the waist was up. I think if you push that big toe down, you'll do better. Come out, it's 9:01. Okay. We need a serious twist. So get 2 blankets and sit them down. You need I'm gonna push this back, hold this back. Sit. Some blankets down in 2 directions. So have a seat. Bend up your right knee. And if you need any kind of protection, you do. Hold that right knee. Pull your trunk up tall. Turn your left thigh vertical. Pull your trunk up tall. Now you have to pacify that front thigh that was just doing, just trying to be quiet in Ustrasana. Now you have to try to make it quiet in Dandasana. And wrap, lifting your trunk. Now, before you get far, this bent leg foot has to push the floor, flatten across those base joints, stand on the heel, release the inner knee, outer knee. Take that outer thigh to the hip socket. Lift your trunk up, start turning. Right groin passive, left groin passive. Lift your trunk up, turn. Just turn the ribs. Lift up, turn. Now, stay there, but if you can, watch for a second. I've done all this and I turned. Now wrapping here, can you catch this top thigh and pull on it? This is going to, I hope, help you let go of some grip right in that hip. If you can't get to it, you can always sort of, this is too short. Where's your strap when you need it? Put a strap around so you can pull on the strap. The arm can cross over and still pull on the strap for some of you. But for most of you, you'll wrap around the elbow. Turn. Come out, change sides. Okay, so that strap, not too difficult. You just put a loop underneath the thigh and thread it over the top. Bend your left knee. Push that foot, stretch the other leg, release that top thigh, draw your trunk up tall, pick up those ribs, and keeping your trunk in contact with the thigh, wrap and turn. Wrap and turn. You got to get turned sufficiently before you can catch your, excuse me, strap or top thigh. But once you get it, do some pulling, release that hip. It enhances the twist as well as the root of that twist in the pelvis, hip sockets. Pacify, normalize the breath in the hip socket. And from that freedom, such as it is in the hip socket, lift and rotate that chest. Come out. Okay. So you're doing this in a sense to attempt to benefit the hip socket, pelvis, right? Okay, 907. Let's take one more sort of twisting action. Sit on a blanket or two. This won't take long. And bend the right knee and hip, right thigh to the side at the hip. You can place it as close to the left inner thigh or wide in a more sort of classical Janu Shirshasana. Depends on your hip. Support the knee if there is any kind of issue. Okay, so twist, well, twist, don't twist, untwist, face forward. Stop twisting toward your bent knee. So brace on against that shin and lift your trunk and roll your navel, if possible, to center, navel and up. Then go farther. Go farther. If it goes well, if that chest comes up well in the twist, keeping your chin in line with your sternum, meaning the thoracic and cervical spine line up, you can stretch your throat. Don't twist your neck stretching, in other words. No neck twists. And come out, facing forward, and sit up straight. So we're just using this as hip-freeing twists, bend the other knee. Sit up straight, brace against that shin. Normalize the breath. So you take support, you take extra under the hips or under the knee. Try to get this navel around and then cross over. What's happening to the straight leg hip? Straight leg buttock. Make sure it is not crimping. You need space and extension. Keep your straight leg foot alert, toes spreading. And come out. Stretch both legs straight. Stretch your arms up. Reach forward. Catch your feet. Stretch some more. You want to make an energetic Paschimottanasana because typically it draws the energy and the attention in. I want you to stay warm by projecting out through those hands, out through those feet. Lengthen your trunk. Keep your exhalation going. Even as you take support for your head, wherever it's going at the end, you keep that extension through the legs and feet, arms and hands. So even if your head goes to your shins, you are still walking those arms. And even if they're not actively walking, they're actively maintaining their stretch. Push through your toes like you do in Virasana. Keep them from frostbite. Push your exhalation to your fingers and toes. And come up. Okay, so it is in fact fine to stay in Paschimottanasana. You can also go to Shavasana, any form, but I would encourage you to focus on this kind of rhythmical breathing. Where you are literally focusing on exhaling toward the pelvis. As if you're gathering in energy and storing it. Relation a little more to the story. If your feet get very cold, of course, blankets help. But if internally your feet are getting cold, you have to switch the direction of the prana. You have to use a different vayu, that is, a different expression of the prana, and exhale to the extremities, to your skin, fingers, toes, legs, arms. One, two, three, four. Is that a 7 blanket shoulder stand coming up? Cheryl with a stick. I'm just watching. I'm not going to ignore you. But is that 7 blankets? 5, 6. It's a platform. Okay. Technically, it's 9:15. Cheryl, that looks pretty good. The legs expectably are leaning slightly back. That's for the chest opening. And because of the height, that's the way you're going to make sure there's weight on your elbows. So roll your knuckles up when you do that. Anyway, it's 9:16 now. So some of you are embarking on inversions, and this is excellent. Technically, however, class is ended, and I must go to my next one.
Thank you, Devon, very much.
Thank you. Namaskar.